Sure. Elizabeth Evans, Elizabeth, Evans, Evans.
And what's your position and title?
Lieutenant Colonel, J5, Joint Task Force, Florida.
Okay. So how did you get? Take this.
Yeah.
How did you get started in the Guard? Why did you join?
Yeah. So in 2000, I graduated from West Point, went active duty for 5 years, was an engineer, and realized that 80% of the construction assets in the Army are in the Guard and Reserve, and so I made the transition to the Florida National Guard in late 2005, and have really been excited to serve on the construction side and then also on the domestic response side since then.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I did not come from a military family. I was actually recruited to play tennis at West Point. And so the summer between my junior and senior year, I was playing in a tournament in Kentucky. Yeah, so absolutely. So summer between my junior and senior year, I was playing a tennis tournament in Kentucky, and the tennis coach was there recruiting my opponent. And ironically, we got to talking afterwards, and both myself and my opponent back then, we went to play tennis at West Point together.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's definitely a much different story than I've ever heard.
Right.
So how was it at West Point?
You know, the best thing I can say about West Point is it was an extension of my family. It's a very family-centric place. It's steeped in tradition, and it's an academy for leadership. So it's not specifically what you major in or what you spend your time in at West Point, but they're developing you to be the best leader that you can be. And so that's what really drew me to West Point, was that sense of family, especially with the tennis team. It was a great group to come in with. Most young men and women have that sorority or fraternity experience, and that's what I had with the tennis team. You know, it's interesting because West Point really is a sports academy. Everyone that goes to West Point plays a sport, whether it's at the Division I level, like our tennis program is, at the club, or at the kind of intramural level. So that is a requirement for every cadet at West Point. And so it ends up being like a sports academy. It's very much part of our academy experience. So West Point, founded in 1802, was the institution that was created for our country to create engineers for the Army. And so while there, I majored in civil engineering, have always been fascinated with architecture and construction, and so that's what led me to branch engineer.
Okay.
So as the J5 for the state of Florida, my role is strategic plans and policy. And so it's my job to think and formulate, 7 to 10 days in advance, what are the plans that we need to be putting in place to give the commander options of how to command the force. And so as we started to look at the problem set, I started on orders on March 10th, right when COVID was starting to come in, and it became immediately a healthcare problem set. And so as an engineer, normally operated for DISCA, or domestic support to civilian authorities, let me start that over again. Normally, at what point do you, okay.
Yeah, wherever you want to pick up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So normally as an engineer, when we're activated with the National Guard, it's generally in response to hurricanes or other weather events. This was very much a healthcare mission set, and it's interesting because there was another girl that I played tennis with at West Point that's actually a vice president for a healthcare system in Nashville, Tennessee. So as I'm putting plans together and really trying to formulate how we can best serve Floridians, and with that excess hospital capacity, that excess testing capacity that we're doing at our fixed testing sites, or even now going into the nursing homes, simultaneously, I'm reaching out to another tennis player from West Point, and calling her on the phone and saying, hey, I'm thinking about this, or I'm planning for this. What are your thoughts? And being able to have that connection to a dear friend and another girl from the West Point tennis team that, 20 years ago, we made that relationship. I was able to get her perspective and expertise from the healthcare side and apply that to our problem set that we were planning for here in Florida.
What was that big step forward?
Oh, tremendous bond. It's interesting, next month I'll hit 20 years in service. We have our 20-year reunion coming up this fall. There's a lot of classmates that are back at West Point, or at least a few of them that are back at West Point, in senior leadership roles. We're all coming together again this fall for that reunion, and it's definitely an exciting time.
So what?
Be open-minded. It's all about a calling to serve. You came to West Point, you volunteered your time, you want to serve the country and potentially your state if you transition to the National Guard. It's not always going to be what you expect. You know, we're a country that's gone through 18 plus years of war and conflict. It's not about you know, things in a traditional sense. You might find yourself with the opportunity to serve in a totally different capacity than what you might have thought while you were a cadet at the academy. You know, somebody that's really focused in those STEM type careers, you know, science, technology, engineering, and math. You know, I had the opportunity to work at the headquarters for the Army Corps of Engineers a few years ago. And, you know, the chief of engineers at that time said, you know, you're not an engineer, you're a solutioneer. You are a problem solver. So it doesn't matter what the problem is, it doesn't need to be mathematical in nature. You know, you are looked upon to be the person that's going to solve that problem or be part of a team that's going to be a problem solver. When in doubt, beat Navy.
I like that. I like.
You know, there are some age limitations. So, you know, you have to be able to commission by a certain age. And so, unfortunately, it's not a decision you can make when you're 26 that at that point, you know, West Point isn't in your future. But for our younger enlisted soldiers or even younger officers, you know, there are 85 slots a year at the Academy that are designated for active duty, guard, and reservists. And they largely go unused because our soldiers just don't know that they're out there. You know, it's a commander's letter of recommendation, it's your high school transcripts, you know, it's a couple other steps that you have to go through, but starting that application process and really digging into it, it can happen. You know, one of the most proud moments I had as a battalion commander was sitting down with my soldiers and talking to them about West Point, and now I have one of my former soldiers who is serving at the Academy today. Well, first and foremost, the tradition, you know, the legacy that, you know, West Point has, the fantastic individuals that have come out of the Academy and gone on to do great things. It is a 4-year university. You graduate with a degree, a Bachelor of Science in Engineering. You come out with a commitment, you know, of 5 years of active service, 3 years in active reserve. But if you're already serving, you have a passion to serve. And the wonderful thing about West Point is when everybody comes in from all over the country, from all different walks of life, you all come in as the same. But I learned a tremendous amount from my classmates that were prior service that I met at the Academy. They knew how to march, they knew how to shine shoes, they knew that it was all a game. And so having those people surround me made my experience at the Academy, specifically that first year, that much smoother. You know, I'm not really sure of the specifics if there's a certain quota per element of service. I will say, you know, it is a very challenging institution to become accepted to. So it's not a given that everyone applies will be accepted. I think the last time that I even looked for the average high school student, you know, most are not just varsity athletes, they're team captains, they're valedictorians, they're student council presidents, they are presidents of nonprofits that are giving back to the community. So this is not your average person that is applying to West Point. But a guardsman is not your average person either. A guardsman is someone that is answering the call. And so if you're going to answer the call and serve your state, why not consider answering the call and serving your nation?